This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
To the highway in a brand new day. Over the rainbow, gotta let it go. So fast to finger down. Dance tonight together. Here everyone's singing. 你看到我就怕，头皮发麻，我的手。
Welcome back to Open the Voice Gate, a special episode this week. You could follow us on Twitter at Open Voice Gate. We are members of the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. You can find us on the Voices of Wrestling podcast feed or our own dedicated podcast feed on all podcast platforms and applications. I'm one of your hosts. It's your old pal, Mike Spears, joined alongside Case Lowe, and we are joined this week to talk about the impending retirement of K-ness with the voice of Dragon Gate English commentary, Jay. Jay, how's it going?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. Actually, this is like I reached out to you guys for to be on for this one because I wanted to make sure that like last year with Yoshino, there was a lot of stories being written and people reaching out from all different directions to kind of get some thoughts on it. But with K-ness, it's a little different, and I wanted to make sure that his story got told and he gets his flowers, so to speak. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, and that's something that I know Case and I, because of how the Dragon Gate schedule is at the front part of the year and how, at least in March, things have been a little bit more open than usual. I mean, the last show, just for people to know when we're recording this, the last show of March happened today at Sambo Hall. So we've been trying to dive a little bit into K-ness to make sure that that he gets his flowers from us. Last week we talked about K-ness versus Yoshino's series, but Jay, I think leading off of this, and this is something that Case and I have talked about. You are probably the biggest, at least from what I'm aware of, Western K-ness fan. How did you really find yourself drawn to K-ness? Was this something that you were following him before Toryumon through like Wrestle Yume Factory and like his brief Michinoku Pro days, or was it something that as Makoto he just kind of reached out to you?
Yeah, I mean, he's my all-time favorite wrestler. And I did like him as Makoto for sure. But like during that time period, like that was 99, first half of 2000, like that run was not very long. So it was as Darkness Dragon that he really jumped off the page at me. I think, Darkness Dragon is one of the most compelling and coolest characters in pro wrestling history. You think about, that creating a dark rival for the hero masked character is like such a standard wrestling trope. You've got, whether it be Black Tiger or Ultimate Dragon, or even, recently Dragon Dia Inferno. Darkness Dragon was different from all of those in the sense that those other characters were created to be a foil to make the hero character look good, I guess, so to speak. Like for let's say Black Tiger, and this isn't a shot against Rollerball or anything. He's awesome, but like the Black Tiger character only looked strong when it was time to build towards the match where Tiger Mask was going to beat him, right? Whereas with Darkness Dragon, he was this strong and fearsome character that also had a life outside of the rivalry with Dragon Kid. And it was just so interesting and so cool to me. It was a very vital part of me becoming him, and then later Milano Collection when T2P came over. Like that was those were the two catalysts that really propelled me, and WCW dying, because I was a WCW guy. And so 2001, March 2001, essentially would be, the timing that, I needed to find a new home promotion, and those were the things that brought me over to Toryumon full time.
Is March 2001 when you started your first website? When, because I've been reading your stuff every day for close to a decade now, but I don't know when you started covering stuff in English.
It was November of 2000 ish. I think I've told the story before, but essentially, like, there was nobody covering, like, at the time. I don't know if you guys were you guys around at the time, like November
I was.
2000. Yeah, so
I was not.
Then like, at that time there was really nobody covering Japanese news to a deeper extent. Like, there was whatever was in the Wrestling Observer, but like, I wasn't reading the Observer at the time. But if you go back and read back issues, Toryumon and the smaller promotions in general were not, they were getting, no coverage whatsoever. And if they did, it would just be, other Japan notes, one sentence summary. And then there were places like Pixie's Pro Wrestling News or Zach Arnold, who would get it wrong, or it would just be results only. And, Toryumon, which, the first year, just results is fine, because it was just, you'd hold a show, there'd be matches, and everything would be self-contained. But in 2000, particularly after the formation of M2K and everything became much more story driven, like, I'd get you'd get the tapes, and all these things were happening. You had no idea what happened. And I would complain to my friends and say, God, I don't know what's going on. I wish someone would do this. And they got tired of me complaining about it. So they said, why don't you do it? You can't do it better. And I said, you know what? Yes, I can. And so I started the website at that point. And the first profile I made was Darkest Dragon.
So I remember this would have been, when I was really getting out of, like, I was a WWF kid. And then the thing that really kind of drew me to other wrestling was through the late 90s, early 2000 after mags and stuff like this, where you would get photos of like this. And I remember before I really dove into Toryumon and Dragon Gate, I remember like just seeing like randomly, I don't know how they would get it, be like one photo of like Milano and something like that.
Yeah.
And I'd like raise my eyebrow, but I was in high school. I mean, like, that was like the start of Ring of Honor. And then in Dallas Fort Worth, where I grew up, there was random indies that would bring up Shawn Michaels students that I would get to see on UPN. They would buy UPN time buys, but it was something that, at least for me, I remember the whole strong style spirit ring that got me through like all this. I remember like Osaka Hurricane, and then at the time it was DG USA, and all of that kind of like formed a circle that I know, Case, you probably did it. That was probably before you even accessed the internet, to be quite honest.
Probably. I was going back when we were doing notes for some of the K-ness stuff that we covered recently, and then when we were diving into the first few years of Toryumon a few months ago, and I was using the Wayback Machine to go back to all of Jay's various sites. And
oh, no, it's still there. It's embarrassing.
It's still there, and then I feel like every other time I would click on a save page, it would just link me to your new website also. But I managed to find what I need, and I really enjoyed reading your in real time, like 2003 TV recaps. It's very interesting to hear you, or I guess to read your words rather, of you being very excited about Toryumon X coming to Japan. That was my big highlight.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, a lot of that stuff I don't stand by it anymore. That's why it's totally deleted from the internet. But no, it went on a journey. Like, we started, the first website was on Angel Fire, and then it moved to Tripod, and then, Mike, you might remember this, is the Shining Wizard network.
Yeah.
Of websites. No, I went to that, and then I moved to the Strong Style thing, like the ProRes Fan network, before closing down in 2009, and then reopening as iHeartDG, and it was that until the end for, God, that was about a decade.
And with K-ness, like, just in general, as we were going into the early Torimon guys, you really had like the veins of where people came from. You would have people that were straight from Nakapon that went straight through there, and you had K-ness had a pretty interesting route getting into Torimon, especially considering who his contemporaries were on the indies before he got into Torimon, and then it wasn't necessarily like the same as like how Mochizuki and some of the others were affiliated with Tenru with WAR, and I thought that was something that with him was always kind of piqued my interest, and I've recently started to kind of look into like, okay, Wrestle Yume Factory, and then I've not found that the matches he had in Michinoku Pro, but I feel like that was something that with like the Makoto character going into him losing the match against Taru and then coming back in it as Darken's Dragon, he in a lot of ways I've kind of felt like, at least initially in retrospect, that he kind of blazed his own path into the Dragon system in a way.
His story is amazing, really. I mean, like his story is one of those things of rejected at every single turn, but through sheer talent and like sheer talent winning out. As we could tell, his story all the way from the beginning, and that he grew up. He was a full-on New Japan Pro Wrestling fan, and all he wanted to do was be a New Japan Pro Wrestler. So he was a little skinny kid, and he went to the Hamaguchi gym. He was a Hamaguchi gym this would be 93, 94, or maybe 94, 95. He was working a part-time job to pay for the membership to the Hamaguchi gym, because the Hamaguchi gym at that time there were two ways to get into New Japan. If you lived outside of Tokyo, you would send in your application, and if they liked it, they would bring you in for an interview and the test. Or you could go to the Hamaguchi gym, and once a year, Hase would come and proctor an entrance exam. And so for K-ness was short. He's 100, 170, 170, whatever. New Japan, even still to this day, for applicants has it's a 180 height restriction. If you're shorter than that, your application is going to get rejected outright. So he went to the Hamaguchi gym. He put on 20 kilos. He was 65 kilos when he joined, so he bulked up to 85 in that first year and took the entrance exam. It's like 100 squats, 500 push-ups, and then like sparring in the ring, and then like, hey kid, cut a promo, like that sort of thing. And so he went, he did it all, he passed everything, but they rejected him because he was too short. Hase said, look, someone your size has to really stand out to get in. So the test was the same day every year. So he had to essentially, from that day, had to wait exactly 1 year to train. He had exactly 1 year to train and prepare. And believe it, like the guy that made it in over him from that test was Yutaka Yoshie.
Oh my god.
Maybe people don't know who I'm talking about. If during like the recent people posting stuff in remembrance of Scott Hall, there's like a little video clip of him laughing at a guy's haircut from a New Japan match. I've seen that floating around on Twitter quite a bit over the last week. But that's the guy who got picked over K-ness to get into New Japan. So anyway, a year passes. He trains, and he takes the same test the following year and does like flawless in terms of performance, like the squats, the sparring, the push-ups. Does it without losing his breath. And he gets rejected again. And Hase just says, look, you're too short. So he has to give up on New Japan at that point, because due to his height, he's just not going to get in, no matter how good he performed at the test. But this was the same time as the first J Cup. And in the first J Cup, this is where Great Sasuke made his kind of entrance on the world stage. or became known outside of the indie circle. So he's, he was, K-ness was, he was a New Japan fan, but seeing Sasuke had a huge impact on him of like, wow, there's wrestlers like this outside of New Japan. And it just so happened that Michinoku Pro Wrestling was taking applications, so he sent his resume, sent everything in. They called him, they brought him up to Iwate to do the entrance exam, which was like exactly half of the New Japan entrance exam. So it was 500 squats, 250 push-ups, and then all the other stuff. Sasuke passed him on the spot, so he joined Michinoku Pro Wrestling. Trained there. Gamma was his contemporary on there. They debuted on the same day, but like in terms of like his matches in Michinoku Pro, he only wrestled, like he had his debut match, and then he only wrestled Taka in like squash matches on the undercard. So there was probably nothing that actually was ever. It was just small house shows throughout Tohoku. I think he only worked on one series, and then otherwise, like he was just regular trainee. Like he was the guy that Taka perfected the Michinoku Driver 2 on. Like when he was developing it. So like in the dojo, he would just drop K-ness on his head over and over.
That's quite the honor.
Yeah, right. And like the other thing he said he picked up from that, like he wanted his finisher to be the moonsault. And so he would just go in, he was in the dojo practicing the moonsault day in, day out, trying to have like this perfect moonsault. And one day Taka just goes to him and says, look, if that's the move you get known for, you're going to have to do it every single night for the rest of your life. And think about what it's going to do to your knees. So that's where he's pretty much stopped wanting to be a high flyer. So you can, but he ended up leaving Michinoku not too long after that, just due to circumstances, bullying, the standard, all the stuff you would hear about 90s Japanese wrestling dojo culture. Got bullied out. He ended up leaving, bouncing around the indies. He wrestled in Big Japan, and then Wrestle Yume Factory, like you said, just under his real name. He wore. Have you ever seen any of his like red tights, red spats matches under his real name?
I've been trying to find that over the last few weeks, and I haven't found any of it yet.
Reach out to like I know Jeff Lynch, if he's still around, has a lot of that stuff. But the wrestler he wanted to emulate was actually Chigusa Nagayo. So that's why he originally was wrestling like in like the red tights and the red kick pads. But the more interesting story is how he got into Torimon, because Mochizuki was a part of Buko Dojo. Buko Dojo were competing in Wrestle Yume Factory, but they weren't like affiliated there. Buko Dojo was its own independent office, and they got bought out. It was presented as like a merger, like Buko Dojo and Ultimo Dragon Gym are merging together, but it was essentially just Taru and Chocoball actually were local promoters in Kobe, so it was essentially them merging with the Ultimo Dragon Gym, but it was essentially a buyout. It was like buying the promotional office that Taru and Chocoball Kobe were running, and it just happened to include Mochizuki. So like totally incidental. But where Makoto came in was Masaji Aoyagi, the karate guy that wrestled.
Yeah.
So K-ness was his valet, and Aoyagi had the connection with Ultimo Dragon, and essentially they ran a show, one of the first Torimon shows in Nagoya. Aoyagi was competing on that show, and he had K-ness was there as his valet, and he basically went to Dragon and said, if you could, this kid's talented, maybe you could do something. If you could do something with him, and Dragon took that as K-ness was like his pupil and like his student. So he was like, oh, well, if he's asking me to do this favor for his student, I can't say no. Not really understanding that the relationship wasn't that deep. Like he was just like kind of like his valet and his assistant. So
so he was his bad guy, basically.
yeah, literally, yeah. Like he was essentially the young boy doing the young boy duties for him. But Dragon thought that he was like his student. So he invited him to Mexico, and said, "Yeah, I can. If this is your kid, I'll do something with him. We'll find something for him." So he said, "Come, come to Mexico." He had, still had to pay for it, so he had to work. Like he had to go and do factory work at night for 2 months to save up the money to go to Mexico. Went there for 3 months, where they it was like, all right, you're talented, but you're kind of pudgy. You're not particularly remarkable, so we have to give you a character. So they gave him like the Visual K rocker character, which eventually evolved into, it turned from that into like straight vampire character. So he came 3 months in Mexico, came back, and did that for a year. He joined Crazy Max for whatever reason. Like Crazy Max had 5 people, but they wanted to push Chocoball as a babyface because he was a promoter in Kobe, so having him as a heel was kind of counterproductive. And 2, it was they thought he was good looking, so like it was better to have him as a babyface with Mochizuki. But then that's a totally different story. But Crazy Max needed a guy who needed a fall guy because the other guys weren't going to lose on the house show circuit, so they brought him into Crazy Max, but it just didn't work out.
No, I rewatched that January 2006 man that you tweeted about a few days ago.
Yeah, that's
not
awesome.
It match is unbelievable, and I'd seen it before, but hadn't seen it in a number of years and kind of forgot just how good it was. But I knew the names of the match, but I didn't realize the pairings. I just kind of assumed that Makoto was going to be with Mochizuki, and then he showed up on the Crazy Max side, and I completely forgot that was a part of his career.
Yeah, basically, like they kicked or Chocoball turned on them on like September. It was like the September Korakuen show. Then the next day they had a show in Yokosuka, and they invited Makoto on the spot. And then like after that, like he was just a part of Crazy Max with no real explanation attached to it. But
yeah,
was like,
he doesn't really fit the vibes of that unit, but he was also really good at the match, that January 2000 tag. So I'll take the good with the bad on that one.
yeah, I mean he was good, but the character wasn't hitting. And they kind of had the story where he didn't get along with Taru essentially the entire time they were there, and he lost. So they did the loser leaves match. He got beat, left Torimon, and then Darkness Dragon shows up a month later. And the interesting thing is, like Makoto, even when he lost Taru, he was still like kind of like this pudgy, like the pudgy vampire. But when Darkness Dragon showed up, he was like super ripped. Like his physique was totally different. So no one. It's interesting to look back in retrospect, because if you watch the timing, it's like totally obvious. Like, okay, this guy leaves Torimon forever, and then a month later, this weird mask, this mysterious masked guy shows up. Like everyone would instantly figure it out these days. But like no one made the connection when it happened. Everyone thought it was like everyone actually thought it was the Canadian guy, Brett Como, the guy that did Ultimate Dragon.
Right, yeah. I remember Brett Como.
The dark, it was like Ultimo Dragon's Darkness Dragon equivalent in WAR. There was a guy, Ultimate Dragon. So everyone thought it was him coming back to reprise the character. Like no one even made the connection that it was Makoto. Everyone just kind of assumed he went back to the indies or left wrestling or whatever. Like, and he said that he dropped 13 kilos in 3 weeks just so he could change his body type so no one would instantly figure out it was him, and like also change his style. Didn't do any of his old trademark stuff, didn't do any of like the little flying stuff or anything, so he would become a totally different wrestler.
Not to jump too far ahead of the timeline, but am I believe I read something about the K-ness KZ relationship partially being based on him really encouraging KZ to diet and train and get his body in proper shape. Is that true, or am I misremembering
No,
something?
it's true. Basically, when Tozawa left, and KZ was like, okay, it's time for me to take the next step and graduate from this the comedy character. Like the first thing he had to do, maybe people don't, newer Dragon Gate fans maybe don't remember KZ wrestling in the like the overalls, or like KZ always wrestled in a shirt or like a baggy overalls, because it's upper body business, right? So when it came that time, K-ness was one of his teachers. K-ness was one of the coaches during the time that the 2006 class was coming up. So there was always like that kind of teacher and student relationship there. But K-ness is known for his ability to diet and training. Like he still comes in to teach the guys like ab training and leg training. Like that's K-ness's thing. So he helped KZ get his diet on point, put his training regimen together to help him get into shape, so when he took the shirt off, he would look good.
Yeah, it worked out.
It did.
And that's something about K-ness that I think that newer fans, just because of like how the network is and everything like this, when they might have come in, like K-ness would like always, because I remember he was doing bodybuilding competitions right when like the zombie veterans became about, and everyone was like, wow, K-ness got shredded. And it makes a lot of sense that he is the impromptu dietitian of the roster, given the fact that going from Makoto to Darkness Dragon, he was able to shed that much weight that quickly. I mean, he put it on, as you're saying, like when he was a Hamaguchi Gym, he was able to put on the weight, but he's shown countless times that he was able to kind of just focus down and just get ripped.
Yeah, and considering he's a guy with a long history of shoulder and neck trouble, to be able to lift like that to get into that shape, it's kind of remarkable.
Yeah, I sorry to distract. I know we were on the timeline of him just becoming Darkness Dragon, and I was enthralled by that. So please continue. But I wanted to make sure I had that KZ connection.
So now we're into Darkness Dragon shows up, and one of the things to go back to, as Makoto, he was still doing a lot of high flying stuff, like the vampire scissors is the main example, but also he had like a really nice, like a springboard kneel kick, things like. He would still fly a little bit, but as Darkness Dragon, he didn't do any of that. Going back to the advice that he got in Michinoku Pro Wrestling. But the thing that really sticks out about Darkness Dragon when you watch his matches is how visually striking all of his offense was. It was the Darkness Buster, the D3, and then later when he would come up with all the counters, like the Judah and the Soul Noche Zella and all those things. But everything about him was so visually striking. It just jumps off the screen at you. And I know that there's probably a lot of people. The thing about K-ness, that when you think about the times that maybe in the Western fan base where there were big explosions of interest in Dragon Gate, those were all K-ness always missed those windows. So like post ROH 6-man, that was the 2-year period where he was doing nothing but comedy matches on the undercard because of the cervical hernia. And then when people came in during Blood versus Junction, he got hurt right, like literally 2 weeks before that started. So if he doesn't get injured in that match, he would have been fully in those all the Junction 3 versus Blood Warrior stuff. He would have been a key player. in all of that and would have got some visibility there. Like his two big runs, the 2010 run with Koneska, that was, 2009 was a low point for popularity, and 2010 was very much a rebuilding year. So a lot of people didn't see that. And then, the run with Mad Blanky was pretty short. That whole period, that was only about a 6-month period. And then after that, he was, back, he was in the gym. He was just a part of the Jimmies. Or even that little 3-month run in 2013 that led up to his Dreamgate match. There was not a lot of buzz about Dragon Gate at that time. So I think for the most part, his big active periods after 2003 were during the biggest downtimes in Western fandom. So I think that he's just not a character that people have seen the peaks of.
And I would say that as someone that like people will be like, some wrestlers will be like, oh, people, what footage should I go watch? To go put so much footage to watch there, get some ideas. Some of the stuff he does, like his inventiveness, like that is just missed out on just because, like, as you're saying, like post 2006, 2011, 2013 were just not times that Dragon Gate was at the forefront of people's minds. Like, it's very hard to kind of like explain in a lot of ways. Like, he became known as kind of this technical guy who was able to, well, when he was embroiled in a feud, he'd figure out the other wrestlers and find out their moves and make them pay for it. And it's such a cool aspect about it that sadly not a lot of people have had an opportunity to check out in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Before Hyo was the great brain, K-ness was the great brain in his ability to figure his opponents out. And if you've never, like, if people are listening to this and they've never really seen, maybe they've seen the mask match, but that's about it. The network now is up to the point where you can watch the entire Darkness Dragon arc, from debut in August 2000 up to the mask match with Dragon Kid, and see everything, and watch him evolve as a wrestler, and watch him evolve as a threat to Dragon Kid, in the sense that Dragon Kid never beat him in that 2 years leading into the mask match, which is like, with Dragon Dia and Dia Inferno, Dia was beating him repeatedly for most of that year and a half, with Dragon Dia only really beating him in tag matches. But anytime they met in a singles or anything, it was Dia getting the win, whereas Darkness Dragon was beating Dragon Kid around the horn. And not just that, Darkness Dragon was also a threat outside of that world. Like, most of the time when you're brought in to be that type of character, and again, Dia Inferno is the best example that we could use as a recent point of reference, because Dia Inferno, you look at that 6-month period where Dragon Dia was injured, where there was nothing for him to do. He was just a guy in undercard tags and was losing, like, with no direction. Whereas Darkness Dragon was, if Dragon Kid was injured or if Dragon Kid was doing something else, Darkness Dragon was slotting in with M2K and winning the UWA Trios titles by beating other people, or winning singles championships in other feuds. So he was the rival for Dragon Kid, but he was also very much his own wrestler that was more than capable of existing outside of that bubble.
Just in case people don't know the story, can you kind of explain his importance to the initial launch of the Bravegate title and his various, happenings with that title over the years?
Sure. So the Bravegate has its roots in the NWA Welterweight Championship. The NWA Welterweight Championship was brought to Dragon Gate. It was originally for Dragon Kid, of all people. He wrestled, like, what was it, Dr. Cerebro, and it was like the championship that it went from, it was him, and then Sua had it, and then Arakan had it. But it was when Darkness Dragon won it. Like, first it was Susumu and Saito had a big feud over it, but then K-ness won it from Saito, and that moved into, that's when Yoshino showed up, is when K-ness was the champion. And those two had, so you guys said you did an episode about it, so an entire, basically a year's worth of matches where they would first K-ness was the champion, Yoshino beat him, and then that's when K-ness got injured for the first time, was when they were scheduled to have their first championship match, and K-ness had to vacate it. Yoshino ended up winning it and then held it until the title got retired. But it was because of like they were kind of like the prototype Bravegate style matches, like a lot of the stuff you would see, most recently with Fujiwara and Dragon Dia, that style that is like Bravegate-esque. The matches you would see like with Pac and Ricochet, like those high flying, high speed, incredibly technical types of matches. Their rivalry became known for that. So when it came time for Dragon Gate to create its own championships, they wanted to have another championship that could continue that lineage, and replicate that. So they created the Bravegate Championship, and it was originally K-ness, being a huge Dragon Ball fan, had the you got to collect the 8 Dragon Balls, so they had like the 8 pieces on the front of the Bravegate. To each challenger had a piece of it. So whenever the Bravegate was vacated and you had to just scatter the Dragon Balls to the corner, there would always be like the 8-man tournament, and everyone got a piece to put it back on the championship. So him and Yoshino were the founders of that division.
Yeah, and it's something with like Yoshino and him, and taking the time to really kind of watch the matches of that feud. Like after the Dragon Kid feud and unmasking Doofixer, the real Doofixer, becoming K-ness again, it feels like in a lot of ways that, as you're saying, like he was able to do the Dragon Kid feud and then he was able to do M2K things. It feels like in a lot of ways that late 2002 up until when he got injured phase with him and Yoshino really was like the rise of a style that we could clearly see. I mean, you mentioned Dia and Fujiwara, that like just the precision that series had even throughout the years, even after injuries and going from the sexy Tarzan to the speed star, just like his ability there and like the chemistry of those two became something special in a lot of ways that I think that's one of the reasons why we decided we originally were going to like pick a couple episodes and then we ran late on one show. We're like, let's just do a whole Yoshino and K-ness episode. And just like we're watching this stuff, it's like something that you don't get to see that often within Dragon Gate, especially like a series that evolves like that. And in a lot of ways, as someone who holds Darkness Dragon and Dragon Kid at Absolute Mente as my favorite match in the whole entire history of the Dragon system, rewatching that kind of gave me rewatching the Yoshino matches kind of got me a special appreciation for the kind of wrestler K-ness became before his first of his major injuries.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because he was legitimately, and this is the stuff that's going to be going up on the network in the coming months, the post Darkness Dragon pre-injury period. He was the best junior in the world for that 4 to 6 month period before the first shoulder injury. So I'm glad a lot of that people are going to be able to have access to that time period very soon. So I hope people enjoy it. The thing with the Yoshino feud is kind of the opposite of the Dragon Kid feud in that K-ness actually never beat Yoshino in a singles match. So
we realized that when we were watching those back to back was Yoshino goes over, and I think to your point, Jay, of K-ness had really bad luck within our bubble of getting hurt at the wrong times. The other thing that might not hurt his legacy, but the reason people might not think of him in the light that others do is, we talk a lot about how you can see so much of the Dragon Gate influence in every other major wrestling company now. But the thing I realized watching Yoshino versus K-ness, there's nothing in wrestling that looks like those matches right now. There's no one that's copying their formula, and it's a shame. I think wrestling would be better off if people sat down and watched those matches, but it's hard to even put a modern day comparison on K-ness in his prime because no one really wrestles like him.
Yeah, I think so. I think that maybe Alex Shelley is the closest modern American equivalent to that in terms of guys who are that good. But otherwise,
that's a good comp. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, and he used the Darkness Buster for a long time too. No, he's a very unique wrestler, and that's one of those like growing up as one of the maybe knocks against a lot of US indie guys now is that the wrestlers that are coming up now are guys that were tape traders in the 90s, and they learned all the wrong things from the tapes that they watched, or whatever it is that people say. But K-ness was very much a student of wrestling. That's why he wants his last match to be in Korakuen Hall, because as a fan, climbing the stairs to get into Korakuen Hall is still something that he remembers every single time he did it. So there was no better place for him to have his retirement match. So being a student of wrestling and just wanting to absorb it and understand all the little intricacies and just be the best pro wrestler he could be.
Let me ask you this, Jay. Turn the tables on you for a second. You're calling this show K-ness's retirement match. You've called Yoshino's retirement. You called Doi's second Dreamgate win. You've called a lot of big things over the few years you've been doing English commentary. On a personal level, where does the K-ness retirement show rank for you in terms of the things you've called?
This is the top. Purely on a purely selfish level. Maybe the first Torimon reunion show is close, but getting to be there for this is kind of a big deal. Like if this was the last show I called, I'd be fine with it. Like I could call it a career after this, and it would be perfectly fine.
Good. I'm glad you're going to be in the building for that.
Yeah. I mean, even just being in the building would be enough for it, but to be able to announce on it and be able to tell his story and give real time translations of everything that's going on is pretty cool.
With K-ness, like we've touched on Darkness Dragon and Dragon Kid. We've touched on K-ness and Yoshino. Something that I know you've brought up before with him, and especially with the time frames that he was very prominent, was the Kineska tag and how it was really one of those forefathers of the Twin Gate division, along with Doyoshi and Araiwa. With him teaming with Susumu like on this last night, and I mean, really, those two guys for a lot of the careers, K-ness was kind of tied to the hip to Susumu Yokosuka in a lot of ways. How do you think his legacy within like the Twin division and as like a tag team wrestler, you think he's going to leave coming out on April 7th?
Yeah, I don't think that. Kineska, maybe there are other teams that had better matches. I think that since a lot of people weren't watching, they only had one reign as Twin Gate champions, and then there was the one other run as Summer Adventure Tag League, with the Summer Adventure Tag League. So even for being a famous tag team in terms of like high profile matches, they actually don't really have that many of them outside of that one run in 2010, and a lot of that was spent against Deep Drunkers, so it wasn't that good. But they're the team that set the standard. There were no tag teams in Torimon Japan. There were units, and they were them, and also Kondo and Brother. I mean, those were the first two real tag teams, and Kondo and Brother were gone not too long after that, so you don't have that legacy of them, even though they weren't maybe wrestling strictly tag matches, but you would have final M2K matches where it was Kineska plus somebody else, or Jimmy's matches where it was Kineska plus someone else, and you would always get their double teams and all that. So I think it's going to be they're always them and Doyoshi are going to be the two teams that go down as when you think of tag teams in Dragon Gate wrestling, that set the standard in Dragon Gate for tag team wrestling. It's going to be those two teams.
And it's something that, at least Kineska, I mean, originally Susumu and Kondo were the tag team in Mexico. They came together, at least it seems, from what I know, kind of like Kondo gets injured and retires, and then you have to have Mochizuki very soon after was already out of M2K. So it made sense that like these two guys kind of gravitated toward each other, and they produced like such chemistry immediately. I mean, something that newer fans might not know is Kineska, to my knowledge, are still the only tag team to have like a big match theme. Like there were the mashups of Doyoshi and Doyama, but like this was the one that had like the special theme for those two. And it's something that as soon as they announced that, all right, April 7th, he's going to have his final match, it's like, oh, it's going to be Kineska match, and there's going to be Dragon Kid attached to it. It's just figuring out who would be tagging with Dragon Kid. And then as we've discovered with KZ, it seems like it's the most fitting retirement match possible for him in a lot of ways.
Yeah, he said, he's very concerned because he's not in good shape. Like he's been saying, I've got one match left in me, but the reality probably is that he doesn't even have that in him. But there's kind of, the mythical aspect of when he's next to Susumu, his body does things that it's not normally capable of. Which was that was the line from the Mad Blanky Jimmy's unit disbands match where, he liked Mad Blanky. He was having fun. He didn't want to see them break up, but when he's out there and he sees Susumu in trouble, his body just starts to move on its own, and leading to him, betraying them. And he's hoping that he gets one more aspect, one more night of that out of this, but he also knows that if he can't go, he can, these are three guys that he can rely on to, carry the match through to the end, and carry him essentially.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a really emotional evening. I mean, you're much more connected to him than I am, but we're hitting a point with these Dragon Gate retirements where they're going to start coming more and more frequently. It seemed like it was Mori and then nobody, and now we hit Yoshino and then K-ness, and it makes me sad as a viewer, but the positive in here is that Yoshino passed down his moves, and I thought that would kind of be the end of it because it was just a Yoshino thing, but K-ness passing down his moves is such a great piece of storytelling that Dragon has been able to use.
Yeah, it's cool. He has passed, I guess he's given them all away, and it's up to the wrestlers now for, when and where they reveal it. He gave the Darkness Buster to Yoshioka because Yoshioka, his year and a half as Diet Inferno means he understands how to tap into the darkness, so it was only fitting that he gets the Darkness Buster. And UT wanted one of the two moves. He wanted either the Aoki Hikari or the Hikari no Wa, but K-ness felt that those are the two light moves. Hikari means light, and those two moves, he sees them as a set, so he gave them both to UT because he wanted UT to be the light.
It's something that with him and with like giving those moves, and a question that I had written down just because this is for my own edification. During the Yoshino series, Yoshino does this variant of the Sol Naciente with like a leg trap figure 4. Do you know what he called that? Because we were trying to figure this out on air.
The Byakuya.
Byakuya. Okay.
Byakuya. It was so Sol Naciente is Rising Sun, and then K-ness had the Sol no Chisel, which was the setting sun, and then the Byakuya is like the midnight sun, like when the sun doesn't set at night.
All right, I dig that a lot. It's something that like that's something that I really stuck out to me watching the series matches. Like, yeah, no, Yoshino's never done that against him and against someone else. And the fact of like K-ness is the person, like the Brain Project was his nickname for the longest time. Like being able to like have like these things and have it rub off on him. And one of the things like with him like giving away the moves and giving Vampire Scissors to Daya, giving Darkness Buster to Yoshioka, it's something that I'm wondering as a fan. It's like, is he maybe going to like pull someone aside? It's like, you need to be the one that like develops the psychology to like figure out how to convert like the Ingranaje into something else, for example. That's something that like talking about like granting the moves that I'm kind of hoping comes out of this in a way.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Like the vampire scissors was actually the opposite. Daya came to him and said, "Can you teach me how to do this? I want to do it." And is it okay if I use it? And K-ness was just like, "Do you really think I can still do this? Please go ahead and please go ahead and do it, and do it better than I did, do it better than I ever did." The other stuff he's left, he gave the D3 to somebody, and he gave the Shoryukaku to somebody, but I'm not sure who. Shoryukaku, probably Fuda. If I had to guess somebody, D3, I don't know. D3 should go to somebody like D3 should have gone to Skywalker, but Skywalker's a heel now, so I don't know if he's going to take it.
Skywalker
Jay,
has
let
other
me-
things on his mind right now, to be quite honest.
Jay, let me ask you this. As we kind of round out the K-ness portion of the show, obviously the Dragon Kid stuff super famous. We talked a lot about the Yoshino stuff. We mentioned the 6-man tag from 2000. Is there another under the radar or underappreciated K-ness match that if you hope everybody listening to this can watch one or a few, feel free to list a few. What would those matches be?
It's hard because there's like the stuff the little run I would recommend is actually not on the network. There's still some other, like, they've been doing matches where they get K-ness and someone else to do commentary over matches, and there's I think 3 of those left. So I don't know what's going to come of that. But the series that I would recommend, if anyone could track it down, there was a period from January 2013 up to April 2013 where it was K-ness against Shingo. No, it was K-ness against Yamato. And then it was K-ness and Araken against Shingo and Yamato. And then it was K-ness against Shingo. And then it was K-ness against Shima for the Dream Gate in his only Dream Gate championship match, and probably the best Dream Gate match. I'm stretching by saying ever, because there's a bias from me from that, since it's his only Dream Gate championship match. Certainly Shima's best Dream Gate championship defense. But one of the best Dream Gate matches of all time, and I'm hoping that one of these leftover matches that are still coming to the network are going to be something from this little series of stuff. But from stuff that's on the network right now, you can see both of his matches with Yoshino, World 2003, World 2013. Those are both there. The Mask versus Mask match with Dragon Kid. That's the most famous match, and you look at the culmination of the story that from the kid that couldn't get into New Japan because he was too short, got bullied out of Michinoku Pro Wrestling by the referee, bounced around the indies, only got into Torimon by mistake, lost a loser leaves the unit match, ended up being the guy standing in the main event of the biggest Torimon show in probably the most famous match in Torimon history. That's talent gets you there. So if anyone hasn't seen that match, they need to watch that. And then of course his retirement match coming up on April 7th.
Good plug.
So also, I know this because when we watch this, they should be putting up the first the Yoshino versus him in the T2P ring match from December soon.
It's coming up, yeah. So let's see. This month is going to be September, October. So this is going to be there's going to be some good stuff. I think there's a NWA welterweight title match with Sato, GM Sato, coming up on this month's episode. If not this month, next month. We also get the Do Fixer storyline plays out first. So the next couple months are going to be. So he loses his mask. M2K disbands because Konda retires. So Magnum disbands M2K, and Darkness Dragon wrestling without the mask. But so there's the little period in between losing the Darkness Dragon mask and before he puts the mask back on as K-ness, where he's wrestling unmasked, and he puts together his own unit. Like he invites Dragon Kid and he invites Ryo Saito, to join his unit that he's going to call Do Fixer. And Saito isn't sure. He's a part of the the Torimon main team. He needs to get permission from Mochizuki, but at the same time, there's dissatisfaction. He's not happy. Like mistakes are happening. Eventually, to the point where he, in anger, quits the Torimon. The Torimon home team. Quits on Mochizuki and says he's joining Do Fixer, and he goes over and says, please let me in to your unit, Do Fixer. And Kness is like, why are you asking me? This guy's the leader. And Magnum comes out, and turns out Do Fixer is the old M2K, and the whole thing was a ruse just to cause trouble in the Torimon home army, and it succeeded. They, Dragon Kid had almost, come over to team with them, and they got Saito out of there, and he eventually comes over, and it's just some of the most interesting storytelling that you'll see. I mean, that was the first most famous big swerve in Torimon history, I guess. All all the stuff that happened in January here that caused the big upheaval, with Eita and Ishida getting kicked out and all that stuff that got people talking. Like, this was one of the first times that it happened, so it's going to be up on the network over the next 2 or 3 months. So please look forward to that too.
Well, let us transition into modern times with that segue. The last time we talked, Jay, on the show was leading up to Yoshino's retirement, and we weren't sure how that weekend was going to go. We weren't sure what the next few months were going to look like, and as it turns out, now that we're here in March, new names, new units, new everything. Just getting your temperature check on the company. What are things you're liking right now?
I mean, everything. I like the pacing of the shows more than anything. I think that it feels a lot like peak period Torimon Japan in how the shows are paced out. Everything doesn't overstay its welcome. There's a lot of variety on the undercards. There's not a need to drag the matches out. Everything. Have you guys watched Sambo from yesterday yet?
I did.
Yeah, everything 8 minutes, 9 minutes, 12-minute main event.
Yeah, flew by.
Everything, it's a 2.5 hour show, 6 matches. Everything is good. There's still that Dragon Gate thing of the baseline level on the card. All the matches are going to be good to a certain level, and the stuff that needs to stick out and be very good is all very good. The main event scene and all the story beats are hitting. The young guys are doing well, and it feels like a company that I mean, it's still, I don't want to get too much ahead because it is still very much a rebuilding period, and this is when you're rebuilding a team, sometimes the young guys get on a hot streak, and the team starts winning, and you get really optimistic, but then reality kind of sets back in, and it comes back down to, okay, yeah, these guys are still rookies, and there's not much name value there, so you don't want to get too ahead of yourself on that. But the pieces are starting to fall into place, and I think if we have this conversation again this time next year, and there isn't, things stay on this current trajectory, that things are going to be back fully on track very, very soon.
And speaking about like things being back on track and like the shows, that was like talking about like the pacing and everything. That was the thing that really took me aback when Champion Gate weekend was happening. Was just like, it was like, oh wow, these shows are. People were asking like, what should I watch? It's like, really, yeah. There's the Brave Gate and the title matches, but it's 2 hours and it, nothing's bad. Everything is a lot of fun and nothing overstays its welcome. And the story beats going on right now. It's something that I know, Case, we've talked about. With everything in COVID, Dragon Gate kind of kept the same course, got the belt over to Eita, and then we're able to do the big 3-way war with RED coming out on top, and in a lot of ways starting like the full reset that really happened on August 2nd of last year with Yoshino retiring. It just feels in a lot of ways that everything has been like trending in a way that with all the beats happening, and that's not even getting into how someone like Takuma Fujiwara has just like exploded in a lot of ways. It's a very promising time, and it seems to be it seems to be representing itself pretty well when you look at how attendance and like crowd noise accidentally happening. Like it does feel like that we are at like the first start or the first steps of getting to a I don't want to say like 2005 or 2011 kind of like feeling Dragon Gate, but it does kind of feel like it's like entering that era on a really strong foot.
Yeah, it's interesting because the crowd's making noise um, is seen as a positive in some circles, and that like, wow, this match is so good that we've got kids screaming for Dragon Dia, whereas like on the Japanese side of things, that it was actually like a big point of contention. If you go and you watch if you look in the YouTube comments for that video, where people are kind of complaining about the parenting and like why aren't your kids following the rules and things like that. So like it's taken very seriously in Japan when the rules get broken like that. Like that was actually initially kind of like the talk that was overshadowing the match itself. So it was kind of a bummer. But
Is there any light at the end of the tunnel on crowd noise?
I don't know, man.
If there's any positive outlook I can give you as somebody that doesn't live there, but as someone that lives in Chicago who has for 2 years had about as stringent of COVID restrictions as you could get in America, once our Omicron peak was on its way down, we'll see, because St. Patrick's Day happens here, and maybe there'll be a bunch of positive cases within this next week. But once Omicron subsided, it seemed like we were through a really hard part of it. But it's America, and Japan treats this much differently.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Japan has finally peaked out of the Omicron wave. I mean, with Deltacron, we don't who knows if that's going to show up or not. But state of emergency ends tomorrow, but I wouldn't read too much into that because state of emergency really is completely and utterly ineffective. Like essentially, all that state of emergency could do was force restaurants to close early. Like that wasn't, in terms of like events and everything like that, there was nothing. Like the state of emergency set of restrictions had no application to live events, pro wrestling in particular. They are looking at fully abolishing the capacity caps that they had in place. It was still like Korakuen is back to full capacity now as of end of last month, but it's not full capacity because they're keeping like a social distance section in for people that don't want to sit next to people, which so that's going to mean, even though Korakuen is back up to selling all the seats, it's not back to 17. It's not going to be back to 1,700 people because they're not selling 1,700 seats. But as far as making noise, like was one of the things that was specifically called out in the article about them totally abolishing capacity caps, was you can abolish capacity caps as long as certain other restrictions such as no shouting and cheering are followed. So I personally think it's backwards. I think I said this on Twitter before, that I think that you need to allow cheering. Like I would rather have, like, I understand you want to sell more tickets, but it's kind of a chicken or an egg thing. Like, are people going to come back when the experience still isn't all that fun, or are people still going to come back anyway? You look at a lot of the numbers that in a lot of these different venues, and nobody is hitting 50% capacity. You look at Korakuen attendances, and COVID attendance, pandemic era attendances. I know people need to have their console wars thing. Like, you need to be able to argue over something, and attendance numbers are the obvious thing to go to. Where if you want to say, my promotion's doing better than your promotion, or but it's very much, pandemic attendances are very much a valedictorian in summer school sort of thing, where it's cool, okay, you've got the best numbers, but like that's still only like if you're not selling, in Korakuen, like if you're doing under, 714, you're not selling out. And that's to say, like, if you want to extrapolate what, the numbers that you're doing, like if you're not selling out at 50%, then what expectation can there be for you selling out at 100%? And this is for every single promotion. And groups like New Japan, Dragon Gate, they have a track record. They were selling out before the pandemic, so it stands to reason that when the restrictions are limited, it's going to go back to selling out, and that's not going to be the case. It's going to be a slow grind to get back up. Maybe like, let's say the K-ness show will do. I don't know how many tickets they're selling or where they're at, but let's say that they do over 1,000 for that. That doesn't mean that Dragon Gate is back and they're going to be over 1,000 attendance every single show in Korakuen Hall after that. That could be the dead cat bounce where, okay, K-ness is retiring. This is the first show with full attendance. Let's go to this show. And then it goes back down to, you're selling 700, 800 tickets per show with this, and slowly ticking back up. And it's even worse for these other promotions that are not doing 50% sellouts. I don't know. I don't know what you guys think.
All Japan did 200 in Korakuen Hall last week. That was I don't know what the main event was, but All Japan did 200 in Korakuen, and that building looked very depressing.
Yeah.
One of the tag titles, I think it was All Asia.
And they did like 800 for a show. Like and everyone was saying, wow, that's the highest Korakuen Hall number since the beginning of the pandemic, not considering the context of it was the first Korakuen Hall show that sold tickets for the full setup, which, okay, yeah, it was the best number of the pandemic, 790 or whatever people, but that's 790 out of full capacity. So it's not a good number. And so you can spin these attendance numbers to fit whatever narrative you want to tell. Like if I want to big up Dragon Gate on something, I can spin these attendance numbers to do that. If I want to defend a bad Dragon Gate number, I can spin it to do that. Like the Wakayama number. The Wakayama number was terrible. It was 285 people or whatever it was. But you have to look at the context of it was a holiday, but it was a Wednesday, so it's midweek. Wakayama's out in the middle of nowhere. There was no card announced. Of course it's going to do 300 people, but at the same time, it's 300 people. It's not a good number. But if I want to defend it, I can defend it like I just did. And that you can do that for every single promotion. So, I don't know. You guys are in the heat of it and arguing with people about these sorts of things. I don't know what kind of arguments you're seeing, but
I've held off from my full barrel resuscitation of some promotions that I look at their numbers and I've heard enough reporting and be like, yeah, no, they did that, but also that there's been enough reporting of papering that everything's suspect. It is comparative.
Bushiroad promotions and Cyberfight promotions. Yeah.
There's a lot of Stardom talk right now that's kind of blowing my mind. A lot of people acting like Stardom is peak All Japan women, and I'm just not seeing any data that says that. But that has become the main source within our bubble of, oh, look at Stardom's growth, and then Mike and I come across like bad guys. I'm like, yeah, but they're not touching what Dragon Gate is doing, even in a COVID capacity.
Okay, Stardom is going to be the tough. Stardom is the hot thing, and there's no denying that Stardom has a lot of momentum. But I do see a lot of Stardom. Stardom is by far the number 2 promotion now with comparing attendance numbers. And I think the thing now is average attendance per show is the spin on that, and that's true. It's true. It's Stardom runs. Stardom is running bigger venues. They've run a lot of bigger shows beginning of this year. It's true, but it's not. These two promotions could not be any different in terms of the audience that they're trying to seek. The fan base is totally different. So it's not like Stardom going up has no correlation to Dragon Gate going down, and vice versa. If Dragon Gate goes back up, like anything that isn't New Japan is a niche. and it's chasing a niche audience. And Stardom is doing incredibly well in its niche. And I think the fair thing to say, a lot of people, because New Japan is so far ahead of everyone, that's the thing. Like the fight for who's the number 2 in Japan, right? And everyone who has their favorite promotion is going to find the argument to make their favorite promotion the number 2 in Japan. And it's a pointless argument because everything that isn't New Japan is a niche. There is no number 2. It's very fair to say that Bushiroad promotions as a whole are far and away the number 1 promoters in Japan, if not the world, right now. And that includes Stardom and New Japan. And I know in terms of momentum of those 2 promotions, like it's totally opposite because everyone says New Japan is not good right now. But but like other things like Stardom, like their revenue doubled last year, and it's like, yeah, that's because of all the cost cutting they did in 2020. When they bought the promotion, they were losing money, so they had to do cost cutting throughout all of 2020. So of course their revenue is going to be doubled in 2021 because their overhead is half.
Yeah, and also the fact that Bushiroad, I'm of the belief that Stardom, it lends itself better to the Bushiroad money machine than New Japan, just with the other products that Bushiroad produces.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's a lot of synergy there, and I don't want to come off like I'm trashing Stardom in this speech because I'm not. Stardom is awesome. Stardom is great, and they're doing well. But the other thing, like getting under the Bushiroad umbrella, also lends you, you get when you travel outside of Tokyo, and you run small house shows, you get Bushiroad promoters. So suddenly you can get 600 people in Aomori. Are they 600 Stardom fans? No, but it's still 600 people affiliated with Bushiroad that are coming to see the show, and it's all about the image. It's like running Osaka Joe Hall last year. It doesn't matter that the attendance number wasn't good because it's the image is now women's pro wrestling. Stardom is women's pro wrestling, and they've come back, and now they've reached the point where they can run Osaka Joe Hall, and it becomes fact. It doesn't matter. So for me, and I'm going to bring this back around to Dragon Gate and Stardom, is the sense that Dragon Gate before the pandemic had, they're going to do, in Korakuen, they're going to sell out. They're going to do a certain number in Osaka. They're going to do a certain number in Nagoya. They're going to do, whatever it is, 3,000 to 4,000 for Dead or Alive. They're going to do 6,000 for World. They're going to sell out for Dangerous Gate. They're going to sell out for Gate of Destiny, whatever the number is. And now we're at half of that. And now the question is, does that half come back? And I don't know. Whereas with Stardom, where the interesting thing to follow on that is going to be their attendance increased up to this 50% cap. So is their growth going to be when the cap is, when that cap is gone? Is their growth going to stay linear on that? We've seen, it was 1,400 in Osaka Joe Hall, 1,400 at 1,400 in Nagoya, so we've seen that their core audience is probably that will travel and see them outside of Tokyo is probably at around 1,400 people. And will they be able to continue that growth linearly? After these sumo hall shows that they have coming up, I've heard that they're not going to run that level, those types of buildings anymore because it's not financially viable. It makes more sense to, if you're only going to get that number of people to run, rather than run Osaka Joe Hall, is just to run Edion. So, if they can, but they've got money, they've got momentum, and I wouldn't be shocked if they do it. I don't know. We'll see. But as far as the comparisons with Dragon Gate, it's a totally different thing, and Dragon Gate has never been concerned with that sort of thing. You look at all the different time periods. It's 2005 when Noah was the top promotion. Dragon Gate was just doing what it did, and then Noah fell off, and Dragon Gate moved up for a little while, and then Hustle came in, and Hustle was the hot thing, and Dragon Gate kept doing their thing. And then Hustle fell off, and Dragon Gate was still doing their thing. And then, it's never been the business model to be concerned with what the other people are doing. If other people are doing what they're if other people are being successful, then it's just good for them. But we've got to continue appealing to our market, and keeping our fans pleased and trying to do what we do.
Jay, the last time you were on this podcast, you mentioned that there was a concerted effort to draw more in northeastern Japan, and we've obviously seen with Fujiwara coming from that part of the country, as well as Yamato, of course, that it seems like there are some stars that they can build around. Do you see outside of Tokyo, between SB Kento and UT and Nagoya, and then Fujiwara in Northeast Japan, are there positive signs towards there's being growth? Positive signs towards there being growth in those parts of the country?
I mean, that's the thing. It's because of the pandemic. You just don't know. I mean, like, if you sell
Yeah.
out, it doesn't mean anything. It's Nagoya is definitely hot right now because of SB.
I don't know if you saw
there's actually
the number, but the SB Kento UT Bravegate match outdrew the Fujita Nakajima GHC title match by not by a lot, but
that's another. You can it's two totally different contexts, though.
Yeah.
You're comparing like SB in particular is a huge draw locally, and like I would it stands to they're actually in Nagoya today, like
Yes.
3 or 4 hours from now. And I don't what was the Noah number? Do you know off the top of your head?
The Noah number I'm looking at right now was 643.
643. Okay, so what did UT and
Like 680 something.
Seventh actually did 713.
Jesus Christ.
Which today's show is probably going to do around that, and that's with no card announced at all. So it's not like SB versus UT was like this huge match that was outdrawing. It's just this is Nagoya. Nagoya has always been a strong market. I mean, it's Dragon Kid, Ultimo Dragon is from there. So going all the way back to the beginning, and then Dragon Kid is an ambassador to his hometown, which is just outside of Nagoya. So Nagoya has always been a strong market just because of the roots. And the thing that's very important is Nagoya still has a mid-sized venue that you can use. The Nagoya Congress Center is it's at full capacity. It's a 15 to 1600 seat building, and that's something that doesn't exist anywhere else in Japan anymore. Like Osaka has Edion, Tokyo has Korakuen Hall, Nagoya has Nagoya Congress Center, but Star Lanes doesn't exist anymore. Sport Tyson Hall doesn't exist anymore. So that's something that limits, for Dragon Gate, who wants to be the lifeblood of Dragon Gate is being a touring promotion that comes to your hometown. You have a small town, Dragon Gate's going to come and bring pro wrestling to your hometown. But for these faraway markets like Hokkaido and Sapporo, and this goes for Tohoku, the Tohoku region, the Northeast Japan region, they have, Sendai Sun Plaza is kind of mid-size, but like the fact that Gate of Origin is marketed as a big show shows that, it's the market there is not strong enough to sustain running that type of building multiple times a year yet. Where Hakata, Star Lanes is like the Korakuen Hall of the South, or the Southwest Japan, and with that being gone, it's you can't run Kokusai Center, like that's Final Gate, that's once a year, and having to run double headers in Across is less than desirable. I mean, yeah, you still get you sell 800 tickets to the two shows or whatever the number is, and that's fine, but that limits the overall number of eyes that are coming in. Maybe there's the same people going, out of those 400 people, 300 of them are going to both shows. So that means there's only, rather than 800 sets of eyes on the show, there's only 400 out of the 800 that are coming, that are seeing wrestling for the first time. And that's the same in Sapporo. Sapporo has nothing now. I mean, it's, E1 Stadium is just like this little fucking soccer field. It's tiny, and it's, you run 3 shows over the weekend, but it's essentially going to be the same people. You run a fan tour that brings 100 people in. That's 100 out of the 250 people that they can fit in there right now, and it makes it very difficult to grow, because you can't sell enough tickets to bring the number of new people in. So it's a struggle.
And at least for Sapporo and Hokkaido, you always will have the people that are going to go there because it's the time of the year that they can go see their hometown guys as well.
Yes,
So
yeah.
they're going to go multiple times to go see BB Hulk and KZ.
Yeah, that's the other important thing, and that's why one of the big Dragon Gate things is the homecoming shows. We've got Nagoya is right now, it's SB and UT, and I think next month there's
Daya's, right?
Well, Diaz is in 2 days, and it's like
Already, wow.
It's Tuesday. Yeah, it's a small town. I mean, like, that is a backwoods small town, and it's the first time Dragon Gate's going to be there, and having a wrestler from that town makes it possible. And that is the fruit of being able to you bring wrestling to Nagano, even though it was it's not his hometown, but it's in Miel Park, or whatever venue, and it's the only time wrestling comes to that part, to that town. So you go see Dragon Gate, and you get a kid who wants to be a pro wrestler, and Dragon Gate is the pro wrestling he knows, and he's like, I want to come back to my hometown with them as a pro wrestler, and bring pro wrestling to my hometown, and that's what you can do in Dragon Gate. And now he's going back as a double champion. They've got a Twin Gate match against somebody that we'll probably find out after today. That's coming up, and then next month they're Strong Machine J and Kai in Yokohama, and then UT and SB again, and then Shashihoko Boy in Okayama. There's all these homecoming shows coming up, and that's the wrestlers get to take ownership of it. Like, okay, you've got your homecoming show. You've got a homecoming show coming up. Get back to your hometown and get out there and get your friends, get the word out. Work with the local. Get on the news, talk to the mayor, do whatever you got to do. It's like Yamagata. There's that was used to be that was GM Saito's territory, and they would always run Hill Sunpia, but now there's going to be a show in Sato's hometown for the first time, and it's up to Sato. Like, he's got to go and make this show a success.
Real quick, can we ask injury updates on Sato and Kokuta, if you have any?
Sato, I don't know. I know he's back home. I don't know. Like, he's got the back. He had back surgery before he debuted. Like, that was the thing that delayed his debut. So I don't know if it's a problem with that or if it's something else. But he's back home right now. And with hip, it's up to his training and the timing. It's like, we're coming up. It's coming up to be about a year, and coming back at the exact same place that you were injured has a certain appeal to it. It has a certain appeal to it. I don't know anything. I don't like I don't know anything. Like, in terms of real talk, I don't know anything. Like, I had heard, the last thing I had heard was anytime from January was when it would be possible. And then when I asked in January, it was just like, oh, he's training and then thinking of timing. So to me, it feels like any day now. I was thinking maybe that he would be showing up at Korakuen to be in time for he would have a homecoming show in April, but the homecoming show is actually before Korakuen. So unless he shows up today in Nagoya, then that's probably not going to happen. But with him, it feels like any day now. Where he shows up and what he does, it would him going back to Z-Brats, that was where he was affiliated, but Skywalker's there now, and there's various things.
Well, that's good that he at least seems to be on his way back, because as we approached a year, I was getting Sora Fujikawa vibes of, it was about a year, and then that's when he pieced out, and I like Kokuta so much, I'd like him to stick around. You mentioned the homecoming shows. We just talked about some great young guys. I'm curious if you can shed any light on just why there's been so many dojo graduates lately. Obviously, they don't have the size restrictions that help, but is there a certain way they market it that is really appealing towards young wrestlers, or is it just that this is where people want to wrestle?
Well, this is the fruit of the peak period, like that 2013, 2017 time period where things were super hot. I mean, these were where all the kids in the crowd from there that wanted to become wrestlers because of that time period are coming of age and are able to come in. And it's just at this point you're not going to get to the point where we know your name if you're not good enough to get there. I mean, like, there's the current future class, there's four, Nagano, Kato, what are their names? Nagano, Kato, Nishikawa, and Edo. And that's 4 out of 13. So, there's nine of them that didn't get this far. So, like, you don't get this far unless you're good enough to get here. And then still you have to do, even after you've debuted, you've still got to find a way to make yourself stand out. And I know everyone's talking about Takuma, and I'm slowing my roll on him just because the last time I went all in on someone at this level, like within 2 years, he had dislocated his head twice, and he's a DJ now. So I don't want to go.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh at that, but that was phrased really funny.
Like, I don't, like, he's good. He's a super rookie, but he's still got a long ways to go. And same thing for Kota has a long way to go. But you think about what we were talking about around this time last year about maybe the limitations that were keeping Skywalker from being a total success as Dreamgate champion. Limitations on his character, or limitations on his charisma, and things like that. And now here we are a year later, and Skywalker is suddenly the most compelling character in pro wrestling. So you just have to be patient with it, and let nature take its course on that, and not force it.
And
go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
And for something like Fujiwara, I feel like the super rookie, supernova, however you want to call it, it seems like that, at least with him and his age and how he kind of, in a way, determined super young that I'm going to be a pro wrestler. I'm going to go visit my local school, and I'm going to end up in Dragon Gate. It seems like that's kind of a singular thing in a lot of ways that you just don't really hear about someone. SB and Kamei came in so young as well, but with like him being a super rookie in a lot of ways, at least in my opinion, it seems like that he forged his own path early on that kind of forced the hand. Is my read of that situation off at all?
Yeah, I mean, he's in a class that it's very difficult to stand out, because you've got the Ihashi brothers who have their pedigree, and they came in with all the fanfare, and then everyone else was good too, and it just, talent had to win out on that. And in December, when we had the first time that those guys were on a show with English commentary, I had sat down with Takuma and Fuda, and kind of talked to them, got their background a little bit. And like, Fuda was so well spoken and concise and able to answer all the questions I had, and Takuma not so much. And so I was kind of like, is this kid going to be okay? And I was talking with and, it's like, okay, he's tall, he's jacked, he can move, it's pretty clear that that he was going to be good, and I was talking with the producer, and he's like, so who do you think, who do you like the best out of all of this group? And I was like, I think that Sato is probably going to get the first push because he's the oldest and he's got the great backstory. And he's like, but I'm like, Fujiwara is good, but I'm not sure about the character. And he's like, nah, Fujiwara is going to be the guy. And sure enough, by January, he was in these, being thrown in as the random guy, teaming with these other units in 6-man tags and standing out in those. I mean, there's still, he's doesn't have like the confidence in character yet, but like he doesn't need it right now because he's performing at such a high level. So as long as he keeps performing like this, the character working.
Is Gold Class catching on in Japan the way it is in our bubble, where Gold Class is over with pretty much everybody? Like that debut and then the subsequent Champion Gate weekend, everybody I talked to was in love with this unit.
Not really. The people that like those 3 guys like are all in on it. Like in terms of like putting together these 3 guys that have Kaito in particular, putting him back with these groups, putting him back in a babyface group that allows his fans to. It's not like it was. I don't want to say that like his fans weren't cheering for him in RED, because they were, but it makes it easier to cheer for him. There's still very much the people that don't want to, well, these are the bad guys, so I've got to cheer for somebody else, even though I like these guys. So putting him with Doi makes it okay to cheer for him, so that allows them to go all in. So like those people, it's working 100% on those people, but the direction, like the weird stuff with Minorita has kind of left people confused. It's kind of like a heel thing where they're using, people kind of feel bad for Hayakawa. And then, like the 4-man trio thing, and how like they kind of cheated to win the Triangle Gate, if you think about it. The entrance music being kind of cheap, and like the kind of weird, vague, like heelish kind of approach that they were taking. With Ishida saying everybody's ugly, and Doi trying to keep everything on track, but still being very provocative in the way that they approach things. Everyone was kind of confused at the presentation of the group. But yesterday, it looked like, based on how they closed out the show, it was a little more refined, and that it was just none of like the weird comedy and like the abuse of the crowd, and like Minoura doing the I just don't understand sort of stuff, and that it was just okay. We're we're champions. We haven't lost yet. Can you even imagine finding a group that can beat us? And Minoura, and we're gonna go out, we're gonna wrestle, and we're gonna win. Period. That sort of thing. So it looks like they're getting a bit more of a direction on that, and putting tightening up their concept a little bit, and now just the entrance music has to move from the demo phase and get completed so it doesn't sound so cheap. And then we'll be getting somewhere. But like that and the Z-Brats entrance music are still just demos, so like they'll be better than they are.
Gotcha. All right, Jay,
Soon.
we'll let you go in a second. Go ahead.
No, I was nothing.
All right. Well, we'll let you go in a second. I have one more question for you that came up because in January we were doing some Toryumon rewatching the first tour. Then I watched a lot of 1999 in order after that. And some of the feedback we got on these episodes was, the newer fans that came in either through, World 2019 or got into Dragon Gate during COVID. I realized that a lot of our listeners don't know a lot about Magnum Tokyo. And he's a weird blind spot for me, given that, I started watching after he left, but he's also a bad wrestler, so I never really went back and watched him. It's a bit of a vague question, but just for people that might not understand who Magnum was, can you sort of explain the star power that he had and the influence that he had while he was in Toryumon and Dragon Gate?
I mean, Magnum was special. I mean, it's to say he was a bad wrestler. I think that's not accurate. I mean, he was not the most elegant wrestler, and he broke down when his body broke down. I mean, he went from he was ace and top guy and champion in Torimon, in summer of 2003 to being a total bloated corpse by the middle of 2004. Like when he broke down fast. But I mean, he was, Shima was the the guy, the ace, so to speak. But Magnum was, what's even the word? I mean,
He was the chosen guy in a lot of ways.
even more than that. I mean, the image of Torimon, Torimon, a lot of people would say, Torimon is like this, you go there and it's not a wrestling show. You're not going to like, a wrestling venue. You're going to a nightclub, and that's because of Magnum. And it's one of the, people know Tokyo Go as fucking Hirata's music, and it's like not even understanding that it's a parody of Magnum, and like it's like at this next Torimon reunion show, like I'm terrified that the music's gonna hit and people are gonna think it's Magnum and this dude's gonna come out. But without him, like things like like Natural Vibes and the Natural Vibes dance, like that doesn't exist without Magnum. The sheer amount of charisma and mold breaking that he had. Maybe people know him from WCW and Tokyo Magnum and being like a comedy guy. I was actually just watching. It was him against Virgil, against Vincent from
Oh boy,
WCW.
what a match!
28 seconds. Comes out, gets backed in the corner, gets put in the Fujiwara armbar, taps out. 28 seconds. But so maybe older people might remember him from that and like the comedy team with Disco and Alex Wright. But or just kind of have this peripheral view of him kind of being the dancing guy, not understanding how important he was. And the way I break down Torimon has the the different time periods. There's the first period, there's Crazy Max versus M2K, but the climax of Torimon, where it peaks, World 2003, when he wins the championship and takes over as the undisputed ace of Torimon, and then like that little run up until the match with Milano Collection at the end of 2003. I mean, that's the final chapter of Torimon there, because I mean that's when the company was finally put into Magnum's vision, and then when he loses to Sua and goes away. I mean that's the DLC after you beat the game. Magnum against Milano, that's the end boss, and then everything after that lead that last 6 months of Torimon Japan into Dragon Gate, that's like the epilogue, because that's after Magnum, that's when Magnum broke down and he couldn't go anymore, and that's when Torimon Japan lost its heart and lost its soul, because Magnum Tokyo was gone, and when he came back, it was never the same. He had different entrance music, and it was like it just wasn't the same. I don't know if I could point to great Magnum Tokyo matches, because there probably aren't any, but I don't know what the modern comparison to him would be, in the sense that just him being in the match guaranteed the match was up one notch from what it should be. Maybe someone like a KZ, and like how KZ being in a match these days, being in like in an undercard 6-man match, just his presence in the match takes the match up at least one octave. And that that's what Magnum was. But it was beyond that. It would be 2 steps higher, because Magnum was in the match, just because of his charisma. You go and you watch, let's say the first 4-way 6-man, that when it was him against Milano, against Shima, against Mochizuki, it was just this whole different level than when anyone else was in the match. Maybe when it was Kondo, Dragon Kid, and Susumu, the match was better. But when Magnum was in the match, it felt bigger. And that's what Magnum was. And he was a piece of garbage. But without him, we don't get to where we are today. And I don't know if having him out I don't know if it's possible to have him at one of these Torimon reunion shows. I think he's one of those names that just won't make it. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what they have for June, but at the same time, you you kind of can't not have him. Like, you don't need to make friends with him, but at the same time, recognizing him, I think, would be important for the Torimon legacy. I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be there or not. I doubt it. I mean, he's been out of wrestling longer than he was in wrestling at this point. But
Yeah. It also seems like after he left the first time, and even before he came back to Hustle, in a lot of ways, like, he kind of closed that door. It seems like, 'cause I know, like, he had like the karate dojo business, and I forgot how, and I don't know if it was actually verifiable. He seems like I saw a photo of someone who was supposed to be Magnum Tokyo, and it was not looking a lot like Magnum Tokyo. And he seems like the kind of guy that, if he's going to like show up to these shows, he wants to look like how he was looking like, and he kind of wants to leave that chapter behind him if he can't do that. Maybe that's reading a little bit too much into it.
He wasn't. I mean, he was he was the former stripper AV actor character, in small tights, was in like t-shirt and long pants by the end, because of how out of shape he was. And I know he got back into sort of good shape. He took a year off, got back into shape for Hustle, but the Hustle run wasn't very long. And he's God, how old is he now? He's got to be 40.
Has to be around 50.
Yeah, Magnum Tokyo is, he's going to be, he's turned 49 this year, so he's almost 50 years old. I mean, not everybody can be Mochizuki or these other guys that are 50 years old and in ridiculous shape, and he was a guy that was breaking down when he was, 2006 is 16 years ago. So when he was 33, he was breaking down. But, to be a karate instructor, you do have to sort of be in some sort of shape, I guess. I don't think he would wrestle if he came back, maybe just make an appearance, and, he could come out and dance and, maybe have like a t-shirt on, and you don't really need to be in shape for that. You can do like Milano did. Milano came in, did a run in, did one move, and everyone thought, and it was the greatest thing ever. And I asked him afterwards, and he was just like, did you see the cutter? Like, I could barely jump for that. But it didn't matter that he could barely jump for it, because it was fucking cool.
I mean, it's all about being over. I mean, and Milano, like, I've actually been going through some of my old programs I've collected, and I went through the Absolute Memento one, and I was like, God, this guy was the coolest guy ever for a time period. Just
he really was, and he had been gone for long enough, and that him coming back was a genuine, coming back to the fold moment. And it wasn't, it's interesting because with Ultimo Dragon obviously was the biggest one, but because Ultimo Dragon wasn't a wrestler for Torimon Japan. Like, he did wrestle there for, that 6-month period after he came back. But because he wasn't a wrestler, like, there was him coming back, there was kind of, the catharsis was more for the wrestlers. And what, the catharsis for the fans was more through their favorites, seeing Yoshino move, seeing Horiguchi move. That's where a lot of the fan connection came from, because a lot of older fans don't have the connection with Ultimo Dragon as a wrestler, because he wasn't a wrestler for Torimon Japan. Whereas Milano was a star, Magnum was a star. So them coming back, the old fans are like, finally my favorite has come back. Ultimo Dragon wasn't anybody's favorite wrestler, because he wasn't a wrestler for Dragon Gate. Whereas with Milano and Magnum, you would have that. So I don't know. Horiguchi said that if you were surprised by the first one, then you wait for the second one. And I don't know how you can top Milano unless it's Magnum.
But that has me very excited for June now.
But knowing what I do know, doesn't feel possible. So that's what would make it, and that's also what would make it extra special if it did happen. I'm not saying it is. I'm not, but like if they want to have a surprise and not just have it be a feel good reunion, and also, but if you want to have surprises, there's not after Magnum or after Milano, Magnum is the only one left. Like there's not going to be, even if Okada showed up, yeah, he's a Torimon guy, but he was never a Torimon guy. He was a Torimon Mexico guy. And Ishimori could come back, but he's not going to do the Sailor Boys, so it's not like you're not going to get that you're not going to get that out of him. And then all the other guys that are around that are stars were Dragon Gate, guys like Shingo, he was a Dragon Gate guy, so there's not a Torimon connection there. And then beyond that, you're getting into indies, guys like Ken 45 and Manji Maru, they were injured for the first one, so you could have them come in and they'd be new faces, but who gives a shit, I like I like both of them, and it would be cool to have them on the show. And like Sugi, who wasn't on the first one, I think that he's got a chance to be on this one, and it would be cool, but it's not anything. It wouldn't mean anything. And Yoshino's gone, so you can't do the Italian connection, and Darkness Dragon's gone, and I think M2K reunions are done. So I don't know what they're going to do for this. I don't know. Like the worst thing is if like Ohara, who was not allowed on the first one for various reasons, but now that there's been kind of like the thawing with Noah, that like Ohara could show up at like the worst timing possible.
Yeah.
That's why he wasn't at the first one, but who knows? Hopefully he's not on the second one either. But I would, if you're listening to this thinking about those sort of things, I would kind of mentally resolve yourself to the idea that he'll probably be on that show.
The one that I hope shows back up, because when he came back, I was like, I forgot how good he was Maka Takanashi. Like, and I know he's busy with DDT stuff. Like, that's the one that I'm hoping. Oh
yeah, they can bring. Yeah, he was on the first one, so he'll be on this one.
Yeah.
Guys like him, I'm sure Hisamaru will find a bigger shirt and show up.
Shut down the noodle shop for a day.
He sells sushi now, actually. He does very, very well, I guess. Like he does. It's not a single shop. He has he travels to the different shopping malls the shopping centers in the stations around Tokyo.
Oh wow!
Like Ginza and Shibuya, and he'll set up for a weekend or for a week and set up a high quality sushi shop. And as you can see by his size on the last Torimon show, the sushi business has been very good to him. He came for money to begin with, though, so he was.
Yeah, it's always cool to seeing the ones after they leave. I know Kotoka still has his 7th gym at this point, but seeing them kind of prosper like that's always kind of neat.
Yeah, it's interesting. And there's other guys that trying to think of the guys that didn't make it onto the first show that could come onto this. That
I know Taku Owasa is not out. That is not coming back. I've already prepared myself from that.
Yeah, I think that if they brought him back, it would be Michael. Would be what they do, and I don't. And for that, he doesn't need to get into shape, but I think he's not. I think he's not in shape.
Yeah,
is the issue, and I don't think he wants to. With Magnum, like you guys were saying with Magnum, maybe not wanting people to see him looking like that. And I think that's the thing holding him back. He could come back and do a Florida match and have Johnson take the bumps, or have put Problem Dragon under the Jackson Florida mask and have him take the bump, or whatever it is, and it would be fine. But I don't know. It would stand to reason that a full Florida Brothers reunion is something that needs to be on the table and discussed for one of these. But for Iwasa, I think it's very much that if we were to see him, we would see him as Michael and not as a serious wrestler.
Yeah, and given the time frame, it's not like they're ever going to do Tozawa Juku reunion to begin
I
with.
mean,
So
yeah, and that's Dragon Gate anyway. So and,
Right.
like, there's nobody else from that. You know, Araken is still around. Katsuo still wrestles. I mean, they could. If Tozawa were to ever come back, but. So,
But yeah.
I don't know. I guess there's the secret base guys, but like Shimizu is he's kind of a head case, so I don't know about him. Oyanagi is retired. Well, Jet could come back. They could do Aganiso and Jet.
That would make sense.
Jet,
Yeah.
they could do, because they haven't done Aganiso with Mochizuki in Dragon Gate yet. So like you could do the full thing. Like since Mochizuki doesn't have to do M2K, you could do Kondo Mochizuki, brother Owashi, and Sugawara with Jet at ringside. And that would be fine. Otherwise, oh man, there's none of these guys are going to be able to. I don't think half these guys even wrestle anymore. Like Amigo Suzuki, who cares? Chango. I mean, that's like it's like battle royal type stuff.
Mhm.
There's guys for a battle royal, but there's not a lot of. Like you could bring Mensore in, but like who cares?
Yeah, and it seems like Secret Base is just like guys getting together each month anyway, so it's not going to like bring in people.
Yeah, I mean they've got. I mean Hanaoka is over there now. Daisuke Hanaoka. He's like a champion over there now, and he's a Torimon guy. He's part of like that final class of Torimon, the 14th class, along with the guys that came after Okada, but never really left a footprint. So like you could bring Hanaoka as a Torimon guy. He could come in and do a battle royal. Like he's fat and moves really poorly though, so I don't know about that. And you could also stretch like BB Hulk. BB Hulk was technically Torimon 15th class, even though he debuted as a Torimon guy. And you could have Torimon versus Dragon Gate guys. You could have like Aganiso versus Z-Brats or something like that. And you could, I don't know, but we'll have to wait for June. I mean, that's after King of Gate, so that's a very far, it's close, but it's still very far away because there's so much to happen between.
Yeah, we have the hot season to start before that. Well,
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, I mean, the Luck Corporation is putting their money down, so one could hope.
Yeah. I mean, we'll have to see who they pop for, if there's going to be a guest coming in or not. I mean, there's certainly enough guys. That's another thing is you still see all of the Dragon Gate should partner with this promotion or whatever, because we need to send, what is it, Private Party? That's the one I always see. You need to send those guys to Dragon Gate for 6 months and have them come back. It's like, Dragon Gate does not exist to be a developmental for your promotion. We've got enough guys. The whole Forbidden Door thing. I know people really kind of dumped on Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe made some comments about like, I play for the top professional team, and on the weekend, on my days off, I don't go play for minor league teams or whatever it was that he said, and people kind of got on him for that. I know that Forbidden Door or whatever people say, and like promotions working together is the I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, is that what people still clamor for and people want to see, that type of intermixing?
There's a crew of AEW guys like Dante and Darius Martin and Lee Moriarty who I know work alongside Matt Seidel quite a bit.
Right.
Those are kind of the names of like, oh, if they could go to Dragon Gate, that'd be great. I think Dante Martin would be a pretty big hit if he went over there, but AEW is focused on New Japan and they've got maybe some sort of AAA relationship still. So I don't put much energy into it just because I don't see it realistically happening.
Yeah, and my perspective on that is like, okay, I think what's the argument from the side of the advantages of working with AEW is exposure for the promotion. That's fine. But like, what's the point of investing 6 months into, let's say, Dante Martin? No matter how talented he is, you bring him in and you train him for 6 months, and then he goes back to AEW. That's 6 months of maybe matches that, who are the guys on the cusp of regular. Takuma has come in and kind of taken a regular spot, but let's say someone like Fuda, who doesn't necessarily appear on every single show, and now you're bringing in this guy to get him ready to go back to AEW TV in 6 months. What's the point of that investment when you could be giving those reps to your own guys, or one of these 4 other guys from Dragon Gate Future that are going to be debuting this year? And that you look at how groups like, people say that New Japan has struggled because of their inability to bring in people from outside. And if that's true, then I think that says a lot about not investing in your own guys. And
or your
that's
dojo.
Right. That's every promotion does things differently, and there's no right way or wrong way to do it. But that being said, I do think one of the right ways to do it is when you develop guys, you need to focus on your own house first before worrying about anybody else's house. And I do know they want to send guys. They do want to send guys overseas. They're working on visas. They've got however many guys are going to go over. They can go live at Ultimo Dragon's house, or actually they've still got the space above the old Ultimo Dragon gym as a dorm, so like they can go stay there. And they're going to be working out of Mexico and working in the U.S. and all that. I don't know who, and I don't know the timeline on it, but it's like I don't see it being worth investing in those types of, like, if you're going to bring in somebody from outside, you would want to bring in somebody that is going to come and become invested. That's the difference between, Young Bucks, Pac, Ricochet, Uhaa Nation, Matt Sydal. When those guys came over from overseas and came to Dragon Gate and got good, right? I mean, that's the main talking point, is you look at how good those guys became when they came to Dragon Gate. That's because that's because they came to Dragon Gate to be Dragon Gate wrestlers. They didn't come to Dragon Gate for tours or for learning excursions. They came here to be Dragon Gate guys and stay and get invested, and that's why they got so good. It wasn't just coming over here and working here for 6 months.
Yeah.
It's becoming part of the culture, and I just don't think, with the way the landscape of wrestling is right now, you can get that easily. And so if you're relying on partnerships to bring in, foreign guys, or to bring in accessory, like foreign wrestlers in Japan are kind of, they're the garnish, right? Like, you don't go to, like, you don't go to a restaurant because the fries are good, right? You go because the main dish is good, and maybe if they've got good fries, you just make sure you get the fries every time you go there. And that's very much the approach you have to look at when you're talking about foreigners wrestling in promotions in Japan. And that is the issue maybe that New Japan had, is that the foreigners became too much of the main dish, and now because of that, you see how it suffers. And that's what I don't want to see happen to Dragon Gate, and that's why investing so much in your own system is that much more important, and not being concerned about what the outside is doing. So if you were to bring in a foreigner, you would want someone like Diamante. Diamante, who came over and didn't go home for the pandemic. He could have gone home for the pandemic, but he said, "You know what? Screw it. I'm going to stay here and work." And now look at how good he is. And he's a Dragon Gate wrestler. He's not he's not the Mexican wrestler that comes in and works for Dragon Gate. He's a Dragon Gate wrestler. And that's what, if you're going to be bringing guys over and investing time and giving them spots on the main cards, then that's the type of guy you want.
And I would say that, just to, like, another aspect of it that just kind of pops in my head is, like, if you send, like, Yamato over, or you bring someone across that people are going to do like this, really you're not playing to your native market. And you can only expand so much outside of your native market for, like, a company like Dragon Gate, and that's just going to be subscriptions, and that's a flat rate. Whereas if you have someone who's, like, invested, like Diamante, and they become Diamante fans, then you get their tickets to their shows, you get the merch, you get all that. So, like,
Yeah,
also
exactly.
also business wise, it it lines up that way, unless the people want to learn to be a Dragon Gate wrestler. So
Right,
yeah,
right, exactly. There is some, like, I'm not going to give his name out, but there was a wrestler that I've been kind of going back and forth with, and he's been talking with other people in the company too during the pandemic. Like he wants to come over and do the dojo thing. Like he wants to come start over, learn from zero, come and live in the dojo for however long it takes, and become a Dragon Gate wrestler. And like I told him, we've been kind of like, I asked the company, like, so do you want people to send stuff in? Can they send it now, or is it pointless? So we've been kind of like, it's been pointless for a year and a half because you can't bring anybody over anyway that hasn't had a visa already. But now we're kind of getting to that point, and I was like, okay, look, you can send your stuff in, but just, when you send your message, make sure you stress that if you did come over, you'd be coming over and you're willing to do it long term, and you're willing to, deal with the low pay and deal with the eating the same dojo food and, living there and putting in the work and, being a Dragon Gate guy from zero, stress in that, because there's no point in bringing over anybody else. Whereas on the other side of things, going to the US, there is, you can get the experience, like if you go and you live, and you're working however many shows in Mexico in a week, and maybe you come up for US indie shows, but like that's not going to help expand the market in the West anyway. Like people aren't going to watch, a sleazy, whatever lucha indie show, or whatever undercard match. Like you're going to have to send a 6-man to GCW, for a WrestleMania weekend show. Like that's going to be the thing that puts eyes on Dragon Gate outside of Japan at this point. Like that's the only thing that you can do. So I think that you need to take a year. You need to refine whatever guys, whether it be D Courage and Takuma versus some Z-Brats team, or whatever, or a Gold Class trio, and get a 6-man that's refined to the point that the ROH 6-man was, and send it to whatever WrestleMania, when, let's say next year, when it's full, pandemic is over, there's no more concern about things, it's full balls out WrestleMania weekend, you've got to send guys to that and have them go over and do Dragon Gate matches, not just be guys on shows. A Dragon Gate guy wrestling, Yamato goes over, like he was supposed to go over and wrestle on an Impact show before the pandemic or whatever it was. Like that's not going to expose people to Dragon Gate. You have to go out and you have to send a Dragon Gate match there. And, I don't think they're ready to do it yet. Like I think that they could go and they could have a good match, but I don't think the newer generation, like you need to send, like you can't send Dragon Kid again because people have seen Dragon Kid. And yeah, Dragon Kid's great. He would go over, he'd do Dragon Gate things, and it would get over. But, Ho-Ho, this is something that Ho-Ho found when he was over for his little US tour and, talking to fans, was that most of the people that know Dragon Gate, like the everyday people, still only know like that match, or like those people. They know Dragon Kid, they know Shima, they know, Shingo and Tozawa. Those guys, like they don't know any of these new names, so you need to send the new names, and you need to send them over to make an impact. And it needs to be like that precise, Masato Yoshino, look at me, I don't fuck up mentality. Like that's what you have to send over. So I think we're about a year, 18 months away from having that type of match ready. But when we get there, I don't know, who do you guys think? That's my question to you guys. You're sending 6 guys over for a 6-man, kind of using the current affiliations. Let's say these same units are together a year from now. Who are the 6 guys you send? What's
well,
your Dragon Gate 6-man for WrestleMania weekend?
so last year it very easily would have been Masquerade versus Red. Like that would have been the easy one. But now with the shakeup
What 6 guys though specifically?
I think you would have to go Daya, Shun, and Kota versus SB, Eita, and Ishida.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree on that.
I'm a low person on Est. I just don't see it. But I think that, like, as much as I would love Jason over there, and I know Jason would kill it there, I think you have to go with those 3 for Masquerade. And then with RED, I mean, SB is going to be the person you're building the company around for the next 15 years. And he's
Right.
the one that gets it with that. And then Eita and Ishida, I mean, I mean, Eita was already over here and loves Mexico. Like, he understands that there and works on that stage. And Ishida just has like the special sauce that I think would work there. But out of these, I mean, I'd be tempted to go Young Vibes and KZ, and then SB, Shun, and Diamante, to be honest.
Okay.
I've got the exact same match. Yeah, I think I think KZ would get it immediately. I think UT does stuff that no one in America is doing right now. Kamei's very charismatic. I think he's very memorable. I think even just that name has some sort of, it doesn't have cachet with the American audience. I think people would remember that name. And then, yeah, I think you have to send Shun. He would have been my first pick in Masquerade. He's my first pick now. SP Kento is my guy. I love him. I want to get him over in America as soon as possible, just so other people can see him. I'm all for growing the Dragon Gate audience. I'm almost afraid of sending Diamante to that environment because I hope he's committed to Dragon Gate, because once he gets in front of new eyeballs, people are going to want him so badly. But that Shun, Diamante, SB trio is a lock for me. And then it's just a matter of, you could do Diane, Yoshioka, and Fujiwara. You could even do Minoru Ishida Doi. I think that'd be a great match. But that core Z-Brats trio of Shun, SB Kento, and Diamante would be, without a doubt, my first pick.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, for me, I'm having a hard time fitting in a Z-Brats team, which is kind of strange because you kind of want to have the heel face dynamic in this sort of thing. But like, I feel like D-Courage need to be a part of this. The third person, I'm not sure. But then you also want natural vibes in that. You want KZ, you want Jack, and the third guy, I would actually go with Big Boss over UT. But those three against D-Courage and somebody. And then I would send Jason to be the guy that does the attraction match, because I think Jason is a guy that is so good that that would be a situation that would help open a lot of people's eyes to him.
Oh, I mean, you mentioned GCW earlier, and I'm a big detractor of GCW. I don't like what they do. I don't like the way they run their shows. I find them to be very off-putting. No one they book, even their high-end US indie guys, they can't sniff what Jason does. I mean, I've said on the show, I think, in terms of a junior heavyweight style of wrestler, obviously most of this roster is juniors, but of that true junior style, I think Jason's the best in the world right now. No one does what he does.
Yeah, he's amazing. And if they just need to let him go out and keep cutting promos in Japanese, and he'll be a fucking superstar. I mentioned GCW because they seem like
No, they're the hot one. You nailed it. That's exactly what they have to do, is run a 6-man on a GCW show, as depressing as that sounds to me.
Yeah, I mean, Ho was very impressed by how they ran the show over there. So like, Ho wants to work there again. So that's just, they seem like the ROH or ECW equivalents. That's why I said them. It could be any other promotion that's getting eyes on them for over there. But yeah, I agree on Jason. Like, they just need to run with him. I don't know, where do you guys think he's ending up?
Oh boy. Well, I personally, high end just depresses me, so I wanted to start.
This is a very anti-high end podcast.
I don't know what it is. Okay, so what is it for you guys? Because I feel like that's the general sentiment, and I think a lot of it is because people are just not going to like Yamato's unit.
I think that they're.
I might be guilty of that, but go ahead, Mike.
It's just for me, and especially from when I really went full bore and Dragon Gate became my promotion, it feels very disconnected as a unit. Because like when I got into it, like I'm the weirdo that as soon as I saw Tozawa Ichuku, I saw Kira Tozawa, I was like, oh, that's my favorite wrestler right now, and that was like very unified. Whereas high end right now, you could go all in with like the MMA with Yamato's background, Ben and Okuda, and then you would have Fuda there and it'd be perfect there. But then you also have Kage and DK, and it's just like, these guys are here to talk, really, and it just doesn't this doesn't mesh with me. And as much as like it's easy to throw around, oh, this is Tri Vanguard 2.0. Tri Vanguard 2.0, you had, at least initially, you had like a very connected group with like Hulk and KZ being North Tribe, like having that, and then Tohoku being not far from there. Like you had like that kind of like vein there, and it's completely absent for me in high end. So I don't want I don't want Jason around it whatsoever. I just, whatever's happening with like Eita and Maria, I kind of see like that, because it still feels like there's too many unaffiliated people. I kind of see him ending up there, to be honest.
Yeah. I don't know. Like,
could he end up in Decourage? Are they?
I don't know what they're
they
doing with
need
that.
yeah, because I would think they need a third and quite honestly a fourth, because it's not like, I mean, Jason's kind of that perfect spot on the roster where he can beat anyone and he can lose to anyone, but you would need, if they add a third and it's Jason, then you need a fourth, which I guess could just be Estrella, but that's too close to Masquerade.
Yeah, I don't know about Estrella. I think that if talking about people that going overseas, I think that he's probably candidate number one to go to Mexico for a while.
That's
I think that's everyone. Like if you start thinking about, okay, guys are going to go to Mexico to live in Ultimo Dragon's house, he's the first guy. I mean, he was the first character that Ultimo Dragon put together when he came back to the company. I mean, it would all just make sense for him to go there. But as far as Decourage goes, I mean, I think the fantasy booking, or just the way things are playing out, that they end up with Eita. And if Yosuke's going with Eita, then whatever that is, and that ends up being the group, and they just kind of exist as a regular tag team within that.
I would love that.
Based on the way Skywalker and Diamante destroyed Takuma and Estrella yesterday, it feels like that same destruction is coming for Decourage very soon, and that's going to be the catalyst that leads them to think, okay, we need some backup to fight these guys. But we kind of thought the same thing about Koneska a long time ago, and they went a whole year. They went a year before joining a team, before joining a unit. So it could be the same thing here. I don't know what they want to do. I mean, we'll probably find out, like, honestly, today, because today is where, if there's going to be a cage match or anything like that, where it's going to have to be set up today. Like, this is the deadline for that. So we'll start seeing where the pieces are moving in that direction. I had fantasy booked it in my head at the beginning of the year. My headcanon was Eita and Kaito would continue on through to the cage match, and then Kaito would turn on him and go back to RED. And that would be like kind of the catalyst for Eita's big babyface turn. I didn't really see the master and servant S&M Eita thing happening at all. But
I don't think anyone was, to be honest.
that caught us all by surprise.
Yeah, like maybe you run them as a trio, like Eita, Kaito, and Yosuke, and Kaito wants nothing to do with it, and Eita wants nothing to do with it, but slowly Eita kind of comes around to it while Kaito doesn't, and that ends up leading to him going back, or whatever. But it feels like a lot of the story points that they wanted, that felt like they were culminating to the cage match, have been wrapped up already, and we're just moving forward. So maybe there just isn't going to be one this year. I don't know.
I thought at the start of the year it was going to be all the Masquerade guys in Yoshioka in the cage, but then Z-Brat settled so quickly, and then Decourage came into play, that now Jason, I mean, I'm not worried about Estrella in a big picture story anytime soon, but Jason's the only one there that doesn't have a spot. I think it'd be interesting for him to end up in Z-Brats for a short period of time, but then again, long term, I don't know, and that doesn't really play into the cage match, I don't think.
Yeah, I think Jason's story is going to be independent of that, and there's still other guys. There's guys like Machine J who need to go into units. All these guys that are going to be in units by the summer, that are going to be independent of the cage. And I think whatever it is, I think it's just going to be kind of a story that ends up with Hyo getting his head shaved. To be honest, whatever the end result is, however they want to get there. But I don't know. Maybe it's just a Dreamgate match. Maybe it's just that's where Kai loses and that's the main event, and then we go on.
Well, let me ask you, because you brought it up. Who do you think will end up beating Kai for the Dreamgate?
That's tough. I mean, who do you guys got? I mean, I know I've got KZ as the guy to beat him. I know the last time we talked was before World last year, right?
Yeah.
So we would have been talking about this is the perfect time for KZ to win, and I said no, it's not. And then he lost, and people got mad, and people are probably still mad about it. And
That is, that is true. I was rooting for KZ, but I was stunned at the amount of people in our Discord who said, KZ lost at World. I'm good. I'm going to check out for a while. That happened to a lot of people in our bubble.
yeah, I did see a lot of that, and I think that's a lot of that is just because Yamato won. Like if there was any, I think that people just don't like Yamato because of his his 2016-17 title reign.
Yeah, I've still got PTSD from it.
Was so poorly received that I think people just unless he turns heel and wins the championship as a heel, I think people are just people on the English speaking side are not going to go with Yamato no matter what, and it happening at the expense of KZ just made it so much worse, and that's why people just refused to go with it this time. But that being said, for KZ, there was never in his previous challenges, I don't think there was ever a time where you could make a solid case for him winning. Like Mochizuki, he wasn't going to win. Pac, there was no way he should have won that match. The match with Doi, it was Doi's reign was his first title defense. There was no way Doi was losing that quickly. Then the one with Eita was just a throwaway to get to Skywalker. And then last year was what it was. Whereas if you put him with Kai's reign is deep enough now to where he can lose. It's his third defense. You can lose at the third defense, and it's not a surprise. Like we're kind of getting to the point with Kai defenses now where it's any one of these defenses can be the one where he loses, and that's not something that could be said for previous times that KZ challenged. And also, it's somebody that KZ can win, and there could be no residual resentment. Whereas, like if he had beaten Doi or if he had beaten Pac, there would be the people that were like, ugh, why did he beat him? Whereas if KZ was the one to beat Kai, then there's no complaints. And he can beat him with the Skyday Schoolboy, and it would play into the story of Kai's reign. So that was another thing that people were kind of like on the Japanese side, like, oh my God, he's going to win with the Skyday Schoolboy. Like if someone wins the championship, you want to hit your move and pin him in the middle of the ring, not a flash pin. Where if he beats Kai with a flash pin, it plays into the story of Kai's reign. So I think that if it's going to be KZ time, that this is as good a time as any to do it. That being said, it could also just as well be they just force Minoru and they give the title to him.
That is kind of my thought process. Is Minoru is getting the Dreamgate sooner rather than later, and I'm a big fan, so I'm okay with that. But your KZ argument is very sound.
Yeah, and just my argument against him was sound last year. Now my argument for him is sound this year. I think that
I really bought into Shimizu winning, and the more Shimizu pinned him in the build, I got so disappointed. I was like, oh God, Kai's gonna beat him, because I thought Shimizu, just that arc of him going from just a comedy character to a killer, I thought they did such a great job with him. And now that we've exited the Shimizu part of this, I don't know that I don't have a good feel on the next direction. But to me, it's always been Minoru. But now KZ has once again entered the fray for me.
Yeah, I don't think there's any need to go to Kota this quickly. And that's the thing. Like, I understand that you want to give him his reign, and establish him as a Dreamgate guy, but there was a need to do that for Ben K and for Skywalker. Like this is kind of the equivalent of when Saito and Susumu got their reigns in 2006, where there was a dire need at that time to establish people from that middle generation as guys that could be threats to the championship. And did it work out for both of them? Not necessarily, but they were able to carry that kind of reputation. And even though they both became mainly tag guys and undercard guys, it didn't matter because they were former champions. They had that feud. There was that backing then from them. So I think that the idea of guys winning the championship and then failing isn't necessarily a bad thing. I don't like outright failing is bad, yes, but winning and not becoming the top guy in the company is not necessarily a bad thing. And we saw because we saw the same thing in when the current generation got their first wins. Doi, Yoshino, Yamato, all those guys when they won the championship for the first time didn't light the world on fire. But then when you went back to them, because they had that previous reputation, it was fine. I think we're in the time period now where now that Skywalker, Benkei, and Eita have kind of earned that reputation as former champions, there's no need to rush it onto somebody else now. You can give it to KZ. You can give, honestly, if you're doing a cage match and Eita's going to come out as the super babyface, put the title back on Eita and give him a long title reign. Give him a year before you go to Minoura. Let
Yeah.
Minoura find his voice for another year.
Yeah, I was always of the mindset that this would be Eita's year at Kobe World. He had, he carried the burden of having to be the first new champion under COVID. It cemented him. After RED was kind of in a lot of ways Pac kind of redefined it and set it up for Eita to really thrive afterwards. It's time for Eita to really get the full throated run. I also had a crazy idea, and this is something that stuck in my head for a long time. Is they're going to try something with Kento sooner or later. So I was
yeah. I think,
and
as long as his body doesn't betray him, he will. I think going to Eita. Eita is so over right now just during his entrances. Yosuke had been kind of cheerleading and trying to get people clapping for the entrance music to get the big claps for when Eita was coming out. But now it's just happening naturally. Yosuke doesn't need to cheerlead anymore. Eita is going to be the biggest babyface in Dragon Gate during the summer. So having him be super babyface and beating, whether it's Kai or if the title goes to somebody else, this is Eita's year, and he's going to do it as a babyface. The babyface that I thought he was going to be the first time he won the championship, and they had the cage match where I thought there's no possible way any of these other stipulations are going to happen, but they did it. They did it. They did big dirty and made him real clear again. Yeah, I think it's the big babyface energy is there, and this Eita should be before Kota. They need to go to him, but then having SB be the one that fucks Eita and takes the championship off of him is, logical storytelling, right? The guy that usurps him as the leader. I think that Kai as Zebrat's leader is a big mislead. It feels like Kai is Zebrat's leader while he's champion, and then as soon as he's not champion anymore, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's like Kishiwada.
Yeah, there you don't need him anymore as soon as he's not champion. If you're Z-Brats, he kind of feels like an odd man out for them right now. Hulk does too, but Hulk is Hulk's gonna stay with them. But Kai, I don't necessarily see it. You bring Kikuta back, and if he goes with Z-Brats, then you don't need Kai anymore. And so maybe Kai is only leader and only Z-Brats as long as he has the championship, and that's something that maybe SB can play a role in. So
I like that a lot. Well, Jay, you stayed with us a lot longer than we thought, but it was an absolute blast. What all would you like to plug on your way out?
Well, people that are listening to this are probably already subscribed to everything. I mean, there's not. Dragon Gate Network, DragonGate.live. If you're not signed up, obviously head in now. We're going into hot season. March is kind of slow. We're done with the live schedule for this month. And unfortunately, Champion Gate have already dropped off for on demand. But we're going into April. We've got K-ness's retirement show on April 7th. And then there's going to be another Korkin on April 25th. And then March or May, sorry, is going to be where everything starts. We got Dead or Alive on the 5th, and then King of Gate starts on May 11th, which is the 25th anniversary of the Ultimo Dragon Gym, the first Torimon Mexico show, May 11th, 1997. So it's an important date, and we're going to be in Korakuen Hall, and that's where King of Gate kicks off. And myself and Ho Ho Lun will be there for English commentary on that, and then that's Kobe World season. But otherwise, also if you're not following the official Dragon Gate YouTube channel yet, be sure to do that, like and subscribe, because there are free matches essentially weekly. I mean, busiest schedule in all of Japan, and now for these shows that aren't on the network, there's going to be, 1 or 2 matches for free on YouTube, usually overnight. So for me, people in Japan, you go to bed, you wake up, there's new stuff in the morning, and maybe for you guys, it's up in time for your lunch break or whatever it is. Gives you something to watch, gives you something to look forward to for these periods. Where we've got 3 weeks between the next network show, there will still be new Dragon Gate for you to watch. So be sure to like and subscribe over there, because the subscriber count lets them know that it's worthwhile, because this is one of those things. It's new, it's still in the experimental phase, and if they're not getting the following on the YouTube channel, then they can just as well stop doing it, and then that would be a tremendous loss. So please go and do that.
Especially with King of Gate coming up, because I would assume we might get King of Gate matches that would otherwise not be televised.
Right. That's a major talking point year on year, because people that come over to Dragon Gate from, let's say, the G1, where the G1 every tournament match is on New Japan World, and they come in and say, well, I'm all right, I've got my spreadsheet, I've done my pick'ems, I'm ready to watch King of Gate and watch all these matches and get into it. And then you've got 3 weeks of house shows, and yeah, I mean, that's the first thing that pops to mind if you're putting house show matches on YouTube now, that maybe all of King of Gate is going to be viewable. But maybe they might not do it if there's not enough people following the YouTube channel and it's deemed as not worthwhile. So be sure to like, subscribe, comment, all that, mash that subscribe button, and whatever it is that YouTubers say that you need to do for their channel, please go and do that for the official Dragon Gate YouTube channel. And stay tuned.
Well, Jay, thank you so much for joining us. This was a blast to talk to who I would argue probably the biggest K-ness fan I know, at the very least, and getting some nuggets that we didn't already know.
Yeah, I've held some stuff back too, so be sure to tune into the retirement show. And those portions where there's usually not a lot going on and I don't have a lot to say, this is one of those situations where I'll have plenty of stuff to say. So please be sure to tune into the live show to get more of the K-ness lore, including the story behind how they became friends. I've held that one back.
Oh, okay.
Because it's actually it's a ridiculous story, actually. But we'll tell that and everything else, and recap. And Onryo from Wrestle Yume Factory is going to be there, and there's an interesting story about him in K-ness. So please, be sure to tune in for that. So if he shows up on camera, we'll be able to tell that. And English commentary all the way up to Kobe World. According to the Wrestling Observer newsletters, I'm barely a better announcer than Jim Ross, but I will do my best.
Well, Jay, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Had fun.
No, thank you so much for joining, and thank you all for listening. We'll be back with you next week. Take care.